But then he got back together with his girlfriend, and I knew because suddenly he was not allowed to talk to me anymore. Well, this is very long overdue. Not only had I studied abroad in Seoul, South Korea, almost 2 years ago at this point, but I promised that this video is actually the third and final part of a series I did. The first was dating in Korea, how to meet boys. The second was dating in Korea, advice, tips and advice. And then this is the third, which is the story time. And it's taken me months to get to this. I am so sorry. But I wanted to finally get it out of the way and share these stories before Valentine's Day, which is coming up because I will be celebrating Valentine's Day with someone that I met and started dating while in Korea almost 2 years ago. So I want to put these stories to bed and get all the drama out of the way and tell all of these stories once and for all before I can move on with my life. This will hopefully be a very fun story time for you guys. A lot of weird dramatic things happened to me. Probably not the weirdest or most dramatic things you've heard, but still things that deserve being talked about. I have some shorter stories and then I have some longer stories. I have everything from a minor stalker incident to a real just fuckboy that I met, like just the definition, just top tier fuckboy. So our first story time is probably going to be the shortest and most benign story, but it's still worth sharing in my book. And we are going to call this person Min. So Min and I started out as genuine friends. We had started doing some language exchange. I was trying really hard to practice and study for the Korean class I was in. And he was trying to improve his English because he was trying to become an English teacher and he was trying to go for the test. And those of you that don't know, becoming a teacher in Korea is a really big deal and there's a really big test you have to pass. So he was practicing for his test and we were doing a lot of like genuine, good, healthy language exchange and we were actually like quite good friends. He shared with me a personal blog he was writing and I read some of his stories and we were like honestly good friends. And we actually had like some phone sessions like at night where we would call each other and talk on the phone and try to practice different things. I would practice my Korean pronunciation, he would practice talking in English, and it was just like really cute. And it was those phone sessions I think were what started kind of like the beginnings of like a little crush where you're like, oh, I don't actually know if I like this person, but I really like talking to them and like they're kind of cute. But for the entirety of the beginning of the time that we were talking, he had a girlfriend, he was with someone. And she was, I remember she was a very weird looking person. Like she was a Korean girl, she dyed her hair and her eyebrows like this light blonde color, but it was the kind of blonde that just like washed out with the rest of her face, and then she like painted those like egg-style lines under her eyes and wore like really dark colored contacts, but then like didn't put any makeup on her upper eyelids to kind of balance out the lines under her eyes. And then she painted like only the middle of her lips. She wore a lot of makeup. She was just like very kind of weird looking, I don't know. But then they broke up during the time that Min and I were talking, and he asked me out to dinner. And I was like, okay, I'll go out to dinner with you, because we hadn't met in person before that, and I think it would have been not okay with the girlfriend if we had met in person, but since they broke up, he was like, I'm gonna take you to dinner. And I was like, cool, see you there. So we met in Hongdae, had dinner, we talked about travel and different places we'd like to go and everything like that, because he was really into travel. And then we went to a video game pong that I was not able to find again in Hongdae, because I looked for it after this experience, but I couldn't find it again. I don't know if it moved. But we went to this place where you could like rent a room for a couple hours and play video games. So we played like Mario Kart, and it was a lot of fun. And like if he would have tried to kiss me, I would have let him, but like nothing really happened with that. It was a lot of that like awkward like first stage flirting where again you're like, I don't know if I really have a crush on this person, but like I do kind of think they're cute and I'm gonna flirt. And it was just one of those things, and I could tell he was like kind of being really shy. And then we kept talking after that one time we hung out, and we had plans to meet up a second time. But then he got back together with his girlfriend, and I knew because suddenly he was not allowed to talk to me anymore, and his profile picture changed to him and that weird girlfriend. And that was basically the end of our friendship. So that was Min, and from Min, we're gonna segue into Stalker Dude, because Stalker Dude is also a pretty short story. So again, we had met through language exchange. He had actually studied abroad in America and wanted to continue his English practice. So we were talking through that, and I did kind of find it fishy when we shared Kakao's that his profile picture was not like front on his face. It was like his profile, and it was far away, and it was in shadow, and I was like, do you have self-esteem issues? Do you think you're ugly? Are you really ugly? And so he asked to meet after a little bit of time of us talking, and I was like, sure. And we went out to get dinner together, and his English pronunciation was impeccable. He was so good at English. He was so high level. He was fluent. Like, I'm sure he was just absolutely fluent in English. But he was so shy in person, and texting, there was none of that. I couldn't detect any shyness or awkwardness. But in person, he was so incredibly quiet and shy and awkward and like stuttered a lot. And I don't know if it's because he thought I was cute or if he was just suddenly so nervous to be speaking in English that like he couldn't anymore. And it was really awkward, and it actually like made it hard to have a conversation, and I was getting frustrated because I'm very understanding of language barriers. I work with international students at my home university, but it was just like he would start a sentence and then like not go to finish it, when I knew through texting that he was very capable of having full conversations. So I basically left dinner frustrated, and I was like, okay, bye. I walked myself back to my university, and I thought that was it. And the next day, he texts me during the middle of the school day, and he says, the message says, is your hair naturally curly? I had straightened it when I went to meet him, but when I got home that night, I had taken a shower, and yes, my hair is naturally curly. So when I went out to class the next day, it was curly. And I was like, I have one picture on Kakao, and it doesn't show my hair from here down. So I was like, there's no way he knows through any picture of me that my hair is curly. He doesn't have my Facebook or Instagram. He has no other way of seeing pictures of me. So I said, like, yes, how do you know? And he was like, I saw you on campus. Ewha Women's University is a women's university where only girls are students except for the other exchange international students that are allowed to be boys. But I was real creeped out because I was like, why were you on campus? And he was like, oh, I just stopped by because Yonsei is across the street. And he did go to Yonsei, but I was like, why did you come over to Ewha from Yonsei? Why did you do this? And I really just like after that stopped talking to him completely. Just the fact that he came over from Yonsei and managed to find me, see me somewhere. Ewha is not a small campus. I don't think it's the largest campus, but it's not small, and it's not like laid out in squares. There's a lot of weird turns you can take and places to go, and just the fact that he saw me and then like noticed my hair and then texted me asking about it, I was very much like, no, never mind, no thank you. So that was the end of him. So that was my stalker dude. It didn't last very long. It wasn't like a legitimate stalker. I'm not here to like belittle anyone that's had like genuine stalker issues. It was just a very creepy experience for me that I would not like to repeat again. But with that being said, let's get into our third little mini story, and this is a guy we're going to call Arcade Guy. So for those of you that have been in Shincheon, you know there's arcades, and there's one arcade in particular that's across from Automatons that's very easily walkable from Ewha. I don't know if Automatons is still there, but I do believe the arcade is there. At least it was still there when I went back to visit in June. And I loved this arcade. Like, I would save up change I would get from like buying coffee and stuff, and save up this change and go to the arcade and play these arcade games, mostly because they had machines that had little it's just out of camera, little Molongs, and Molong is like my favorite little character. They had so many little Molong crane machines, and that is what I would spend my money on. That and Tekken. I would play Tekken, and I would do the crane machines. But while I was hanging out in the arcade the one night, and I was with friends, I was with two other friends, this guy came up to me, and he had like friends behind him, and he was super, super excited. And he just like kept saying like how cute I was. He thought I was so cute. He couldn't believe that he just saw me in this arcade. Like, did I fall from heaven? He used some weird line involving like an angel, and he was just overwhelmed and out of his mind that he saw with his eyes me in the arcade. And I was like going along with it for a little bit. I was like, you're nice. And his friends behind him were just like, and he wasn't like bad looking. He wasn't the most handsome, but he wasn't like bad looking. So I was like, I'll entertain you for now. And he was just like, you're so beautiful. Do you have a cacao? Can I please have your cacao? Meanwhile, his English was very broken. And this was towards, not the end of my stay in Korea, but it had been long enough that I was starting to pick up how to speak in broken sentences. So I'm using extremely broken Korean. He's using mildly broken English, and we're trying to communicate. But he was just like, cacao, cacao. And I was like, yeah, I have a cacao. And I gave him my cacao. And then he was like, he bowed at me, and he was like, I'll call you. Let's go get drinks. And I was like, okay, bye, and he left with his friends. And then like 5 minutes later, I'm at the stupid Molon crane machines trying to win a toy, and I won one, and then it fell and got stuck. And I actually have a picture from when it got stuck. I'll post it somewhere. But I basically just smacked my hand on the glass and slid it down, and I think I made some sound, like I was like, no, because suddenly he was next to me, and I'm pretty sure I jumped. I was like, you're back, like what did you do? Why did you come back? Did you lose something? And he was like, oh, did you get it stuck? And I'm like, yeah, it's stuck. And he like went to go get a worker, but as he was gone looking for the worker, I had texted my friend saying I needed an adult, and she was like, are you okay? Do you need help? So she came up. She was probably playing Tekken or something. So she came up, and we were just like, it's not worth it. And we like went to leave, and he was like, oh, the manager will be back. Like he came back up, and I was like, it's okay. We're gonna leave now. And he was like, oh, okay, I'll call you. Like we'll meet up. Like, oh, you're so beautiful. Thank you so much for giving me your cacao. Like, oh, like this is such a blessing. And I was like, okay, bye. I leave with my friends now. And then a couple days later, his cacao, we were texting like a little bit, but like not well. Like we couldn't keep a conversation going very easily. And he called me, and I picked up, and he was drunk and speaking in Korean, which full sentences I was not comprehending at that point. I didn't know what he was saying. On top of that, he was drunk, so I'm sure he was slurring. And I was just like, hello? Like I kept saying hello. I didn't know how to respond. And then he hung up after a few minutes. I think I was on the phone for like 4 whole minutes. And then I assume it was his friend texted me like, oh, I'm so sorry, he's drunk. And I was like, yeah, haha, no problem. But he apologized after that, I guess when he was sober again, but I think he was so embarrassed that he never contacted me again, which I'm not mad about, but it was just a very weird whirlwind of experience. Hello everyone, so I'm actually in editing now, and with all of the footage together it was about an hour, and I know no one wants to sit here and watch that, so I am dividing the videos into 2 parts. Part 1, which is the shorter videos, the shorter stories which you just watched, and part 2 will be the longer stories that I hope you guys go watch too, because that includes the ultimate fuckboy story as well as other stories that I personally think are worth listening to. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope to see you in the next one. If I don't see you there, then I'll just generally see you next time. Thank you guys so much. Bye bye.